So, John, we want to hear about your trip.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So,
one of the great things about this job is every once in a while you get asked to do something that is got a business side to it, but it's just kind of fun. And this was a invitation. So the way the Peruvian government works is the protected areas are often managed by non-governmental organizations. And so they
okay.
sign a contract and then they actually find the money to have staff that helps run the guard posts and things. And so the Tambopata Nature Reserve is run by an NGO called uh, Alder and IDARE. And they invited us down along with the Peruvian government's national parks arm that works with them, a bunch of scientists from around the world basically to come in, and a lot of them were Peruvians. And one of the neat things was two of them were Peruvians that got their PhDs at the University of Illinois Chicago, one of whom was my first graduate student, uh, Jose Pepeteo, and the other one was a guy named Paul Velasco who got his PhD in mammals with Bruce Patterson here at the Field Museum. So I've known them for years.
Cool.
And so they were down there, and then there were just a whole host of other people that I got to meet. And I was telling Shannon, as one of my favorite ones in a crazy way was I did my dissertation at this incredible place in Bolivia called Nolkemp Mercado National Park. And it's called Nolkemp Mercado National Park because Nolkemp Mercado was Brazil or Bolivia's only ornithologist back in the mid 1990s. And he was tragically killed on a runway in that national park.
Hey, John, it's
Wow.
1980s.
It
We're
is
old.
80s, isn't it?
We're old.
Yeah.
You have to remember that.
So, so
What
this
happened?
so Nolkemp was working with some Spaniards, and they were going around and inventorying this area, and they landed on this runway that was part of a cocaine factory. And my guess is they knew that this was a cocaine factory because it was a spectacular runway up in the middle of this plateau with no roads around it. But they figured they could just talk to the people there and tell them that they were just looking for birds. And shots started firing as they got
Oh,
out of the
no.
plane, and everybody but one person was killed, and so Noel Kemp was killed. And when
Oh,
word got
no.
back to Santa Cruz, there was a major outcry that led to the Bolivian military going in and cleaning out the cocaine factory, so and declaring the park a national park. But what I'd known but hadn't real so I met this guy. His name was Sebastian Castroviejo at this meeting, and he's a herpetologist, I think. And he said, my dad was the one who organized that trip for the on the Spanish side, working for uh, this incredible place called Doñana, which is the delta of this river in the southern part of Spain, and it's got a big research group associated with it. And so when I first started going there, I saw their articles and knew what they had done, and I hadn't really put two and two together as to the tragic connections that existed there. But at the same time, it was you know 2 years later we were back on that runway doing inventory work that uncovered 40 new species for Bolivia because the only cerrado habitat in the country was basically on top of that plateau. So it was an incredible place for birds that these guys just never, tragically, never got the chance to study.
Wow.
Wow.
That's an
And
incredible story.
yeah, it kind of ties in. I mean, right now in this part of Peru that we were in the Tambopata area, these rivers are going through these spectacular parcels of protected forest. So there's Manu National Park, and this place called Tambopata has a place called Explorers Inn, which was really the first big nature lodge that bird watchers visited in that part of the world. And so if you go on eBird, I think there are 495 species recorded from this lodge over time.
Wow.
Um,
Cool.
Amazing.
but one of the things that's happening nowadays is there's an awful lot of the rivers have been really majorly impacted by gold mining. And so you
Oh,
still see semi-legal gold mining up and down the rivers as you go around, which is just unfortunate. And, but it's one of the ways in which people in the major city there is Puerto Maldonado. And that's the gateway to this incredible area.
and so were you near the
Anyway,
coast, or were you staying kind of in one place, or were you traveling around, or?
So you basically fly through Lima for almost everything in Peru, and they built
Okay.
a new airport there, which was fun to see. And from there you fly to whatever your destination is. And there were an awful lot of American tourists going places. And when you fly into Puerto Maldonado, I looked on eBird, and when around Puerto Maldonado, there must be on the order of 60 to or more um, lodges that are on
Hmm.
various parcels of land along the major rivers that flow into that area and have their confluence. And so, this group is looking for research collaborations.
Hmm.
And so there were some other folks. There's a guy named Jared Wolf who's at Michigan Tech University who got his PhD at LSU in the wildlife department. So he went to the same school that Shannon and I did, but he worked in this with this other group. And he's a bird bander and has done long-term bird banding on plots in tropical forests in Africa and South America. And so he's setting up to start a project down there. And I just think there's some really neat things we could potentially do over time. And I'd like to look at some of the citizen science data that already exists as a result of eBird for the region and see some if we can figure out some things there.
That's so cool. You sent us some pictures of some birds that you saw down there. I mean, it looked incredible. It was exciting to see some pictures of the Watson too, which we've talked so much about. And then, I mean,
Yep.
I'm excited to talk
Oh,
about
and
the.
Pontos, which is to me is a word for pig. And so they kept
uh,
saying, yeah, we may see chanchos, and I'm like, we're going to see white-lipped peccaries, which are something I'd like to see, but they're apparently really rare now. And it was
uh,
like, no, they're Hoatzins,
Oh, okay.
but they
Wait,
are so cool. That
is it because they smell?
I wonder if it is. Yeah,
It's a good question.
it is.
No offense, Watsons.
No, but oh my gosh, are they fun to look at? They're just absolutely bizarre birds. And we were in a uh, boat that we were paddling with probably about 6 or 7 other people, and they were just we'd gotten up at 5 in the morning, and one of the things that's fun is you get on these lakes really early before dawn, and you can hear owls calling and paraki, these night jars calling, and then there are wood rails and green ibis. And as it gets light, we're paddling up the shore, and there are these three Hoatzins just sort of sitting together like they're just trying to wake up and figure out what they're going to do for the day. It's really cool.
Do you think they
So,
were young that they were all sitting together like that, or?
So I think there's something to do with the family groups, and they may have, and I don't. I'm sure there's a little bit of work that's been done on them, but not very much. And it would be interesting to know. But like I mean, it'd be hard to catch them because they're out over the water, and. But I'm sure you could figure out ways and individually mark them and then follow them around to figure it out. But I don't know that anybody's done
hmm.
that much.
And so was there a particular bird you were going down there to study, John, or was it just the everywhere kind of in general? Or, I mean,
So the whole point of the project was just to kind of get to know the lay of the land and then encourage people to think about projects. And the one project that we have that we're hoping to find funding for is to redo this transect along this road that's a little bit north of where we were, just but not that far. It's called the Manu Road, and it's a road that goes all the way from the Amazon basin up to Treeline. And it was surveyed by Field Museum personnel with money from the National Science Foundation for birds and small mammals 25 years ago.
hmm.
And the idea is that resurveying it now would allow us to get a real picture of what kind of change is happening over a period of time like that at the level of genetics and morphology and just distribution in general. And again, with changing climates, there may be some important things going on that it'd be worth knowing about by doing that resample.
I mean, I also think that if you make parks of any sort, national parks, whatever, they need to have science being done in them, not just to be preserved and protected the way people, put stamps or hoard collections, whatever. But I do think they need to do that. They need to be part of the scientific infrastructure of biodiversity. People need to be monitoring them. Yeah, so you
Yeah,
can't just, I mean, you can't just hide them away 'cause people live everywhere. So you have to take the next step, which is to educate people about why are doing what you're doing. And I think that a lot of people who work in that environment or that area think that preserving the land is enough. Um, but it's
Yeah,
not.
that was a really gratifying thing about this consultation is that we had presentations by people, for instance, that run this tower and have, I think, over a decade's worth of data on air flux in Amazonian forest, where they're looking at how that changes. And these folks are the word they keep using over and over again. Rede, R-E-D-E in Spanish, which to me means net. That's what we call the bird nets that we work with, but it also means network. And what they were talking about is setting up networks. And so they've got this one tower in the Tambapada area, and they want to set up 3 more going north to the northern part of Peru to kind of get a network of detailed weather stations across that area to better understand how these air currents are moving through the forests of the Amazon basin. And, those data are going to be critical to understanding whether climate is leading to local changes in air movement in the forest. That means diversity of the trees are going to be negative or positively or negatively impacted by what's going on. And so those long-term monitoring things that Shannon's talking about are just essential. And I felt like these folks were really interested in trying to set up those connections. So there were botanists, and I always remind myself that if I knew enough about botany, I'd be able to explain a lot of what birds are doing. And so, but I'm never going to be an expert botanist. So having these people to be able to know and ask questions to about the distribution of various fruiting trees that could be then turned around and asked, how does that compare with bird diversity or distributions across a given area? Yeah, there's just a lot of neat science, I think, that's more and more possible now. And the one other thing that Shannon didn't mention, which I think is really important, is you need a good local university. And unfortunately, the local university of Puerto Maldonado is just getting a biology program now. And so that's a great thing, but most of the people there are coming from someplace else to work on these facilities.
Could you and Shannon go work there?
For sure.
Start it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
No.
really cool.
I could not.
No.
Okay.
No. I wonder how many times I'd fall down in the first day. Maybe 150, 200.
But you can build off, even if we don't end up going down right away, if Jared Wolf starts this program, we may be able to work with him on getting him, him or his students to take blood samples, for instance, if they get going, such that we can put together some baseline data on genetic patterns across the lowlands and up into the highlands for various birds. So there's lots of ways you could see developing connectedness. And then working at a big natural history museum is always interesting because there were at least 3 or 4 of the experts there that had various ties to the field museum. So
cool.
and that's always fun to see, that even if they don't work on birds.
So, John, was there any discussion of disability accommodations? How you get people who have trouble moving? Is there talk of pathways that maybe have wooden ramps so that people can use a wheelchair on them? Is there any discussions like that?
We talked a little bit about the networks of the various lodges, but my guess would be that it might be hard to figure out, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's a lodge or two that's done better than the other lodges. But again, those are the kinds of networks I think that would be really interesting to set up. There are, they do awful lot with local volunteers, and I think that, like we got to meet the park guards, and a number of those park guards are from the local area that started in volunteer programs and then were given the training that allowed them to serve as park guards. And I think that's just super smart to have local people completely engaged in what's going on for all this. I think there's always work to do there to figure out better ways to help with those kinds of things.
That's one of the things that Ed Young is doing, is he's just gotten very involved with disability bird watching, having accessible bird watching trips.
Yeah. How do you train guides to help with that too? I mean, this would be a perfect place to do a better job of that.
Yeah.
And then one of my thoughts that I think is always a good idea is I don't think there's a natural history place, museum, or anything like it, even nature center in Puerto Maldonado. So there are these places where you can go and find a lodge or rent a boat tour or something, but there really should be a kind of a nature center where people could go in and just find out information before or after they do a trip. And that could be manned by local folks with lots of good knowledge. And they would have, so there's not a hub like that, Shannon. That's definitely clear. And I think that would be it. Like, that'd be interesting to know whether Puerto Maldonado has a chamber of commerce or something.
Mhm.
But those are the kinds of things that you could imagine putting together a hub that could allow people to exchange information, so the lodge that actually does put all that stuff in could then let those people know, and that could be more broadly available to anybody visiting.
Yeah. I mean, not obviously not every place is going to do that, but it would be nice if there was at least one place in the local area where people who do have those issues could feel welcome, and have
For
a
sure.
place to go that puts them into nature. And
I mean, one of the things that's incredible is most of the places you're landing, you're having to walk up stairs that are constantly in flux because of the rains and things to flat land that's probably 100 to 150 feet above the boat
Oh, wow.
dock.
Mm.
So there's some
Yeah.
serious challenges.
I mean, that place in on the Osa Peninsula in Costa Rica where we went was like that. You land on the beach; it's absolutely beautiful, and then you look at where you have to go. And you're like,
Mm.
all right, how am I getting up there? And they have a
Yeah.
rope tow to help you get up,
Oh
because
my
that's how
gosh.
steep it is.
Wow. Hilarious.
Well, certainly you could go there and start like kind of a pilot program and figure out a way to, get a birding where, that is accessible, and then get other people to kind of see that and like incorporate that into their tours and everything once you have one that is successful and, is getting people in, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was
Yeah.
on the way back to Miami. I was sitting next to a mother and daughter who were from Birmingham, Alabama. They'd gone down there. They'd gone down on a tour of, I think it was a 14-day tour of Peru where they'd gone to Cusco and up in the
Mm.
mountains, and so they'd seen a lot of Peru. But one of the last things they did was go down to Puerto Maldonado, and so they went out on the boats, and yeah.
Mm.
But
Huh.
it's worth it. I haven't mentioned yet, but the last thing we did was we went out to a what's called a culpa, Culpa, and this is basically a wall along the river, bare wall of clay that the parrots come in and feed on every day.
Oh,
So
Wow.
they
cool.
get minerals out. So there might have been 8 species of parrots, like
Oh, how
like 3
cool.
species of macaws, four
Wow.
species of macaws. It's
Cool.
absolutely stunning, and you stay a distance away so you don't bother them, but you just get 10 blue and gold macaws flying in and just landing on the bank of this river and just sitting there for long periods of time, and then other
Cool.
birds are swirling around. It's just absolutely beautiful.
Wow.
So cool. Is the clay wall or the culpa, is it man-made? Is it like a salt lick or is it just naturally occurring?
These are naturally, and it's even because there seem like there are walls all along the river that could potentially be the same, and so they've done some analyses, and they're definitely minerals that they're going for. But there's a level of, to me, almost randomness about why they decided this was the place to go. And we were talking about it. One of the things they don't know, for instance, because parrots are hard to catch and 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 say band. If you put a band on a macaw, it'll often just pick it off with no problem at all. They're that strong and capable of doing. So one of the questions the ornithologists have is like, how many birds are visiting? If you see 10 birds, 10 blue and gold macaws one day, are you seeing the same 10 to 12 the next day? Or how big an area are these birds coming from? And it could be substantial distances.
So cool. Did you get any pictures of that or?
Yeah, he
Yeah,
does
I got
have some.
I
I
just
find them so fascinating just from an artistic perspective because you have this kind of sandy brown environment with all these like brilliant pops of color that are all over the place.
So is there anything else on Peru? Do we want to get into the Inca Tern then?
Well, I think we should get into Inca Tern, but one thing I wanted to say first of all is you guys have experienced some of this, that if you're going to a place like this and you want to watch birds, you can do it on your own if you want. You could go with a bird tour company who would give you a tour leader who knows the area for the most part really well. And then all the best bird tour leaders rely extensively on the knowledge of local people who can find, individual birds that they know about in their given area. And so, there's some good strategies to put forward, because there are a lot of birds in these areas. And if you want to see a lot of them, you got to know some specifics, or because most people don't have the time to figure out where they all are themselves.
Did you have anything on your list, John, that you were hoping to see that you hadn't seen before?
We were joking about that. And, I've still never seen a harpy eagle anywhere I've ever been and in the wild.
Oh.
And that was one of those things when you're sitting on a boat for 3 or 4 hours going up a river, you're always hoping you might see something like that fly across.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're not seeing something fly across, you're looking in the forest edge going, maybe there'll be a jaguar.
Oh, cool.
That didn't happen.
Cool.
No.
I'll have to go back.
Yeah.
John, did you have to get any special vaccinations for this trip?
Well, we were talking about that. They're not asking for to see your vaccination card these days. Yellow fever is the one that it seems like it's the most important, but that's gotten really interesting because they've realized that people who have gotten this it used to be 10 years before you had to redo yellow fever. And then they started testing people, and they found out that people still had ample amounts of antibodies for the most part at 10 years. And there are some problems with older people actually getting yellow fever, as far as I understand it. And so anyway, it's always good to go see a doctor or one of the travel clinics and check out beforehand. But
I mean, minimally, you should have a tetanus shot. Make sure you're up to date on a tetanus shot. Because that's a likely thing to happen, stepping on a nail or falling and cutting your hand. And hopefully someday there will be better treatments, vaccinations, preventatives for malaria too. And that's some of the reasons why we didn't take our son places when he was little, because, he didn't weigh enough to take anti-malarial medicine, and that wasn't high on our list of things to do. So, he went places where the timing was right for there not being very many birds, or a place where malaria wasn't a huge deal. But then again, he would have starved to death because his diet was so limited. I don't know what he would have eaten. When we went to Brazil, we ran out of peanut butter because basically that's what he would eat: peanut butter, chocolate milk, and vegetables. But we ran out of peanut butter. Brazilians like things sweet, and all of the Brazilian peanut butter had honey in it, and he just could not. So he basically didn't eat anything. He drank chocolate milk for the last couple of days we were in Brazil.
He probably loved it.
Yep, he lived.
He survived, yeah.
Yeah. I was just saying, when you're on the river, do you wear DEET, or how do you protect yourself?
So there's another I was thinking about as Shannon was describing some of this. I mean, one of the interesting things this time of year is it's the height of the dry season in the winter. And so there weren't that many mosquitoes around. And when you're out on the river, actually, it's more about putting enough sunscreen on than anything else. It's more when you get going in the forest that you potentially have to worry about mosquitoes and sand flies that carry leishmaniasis and stuff. And so, but I don't know. I mean, it's just, yeah.
Then again, I sat outside for a very short period of time and have so many mosquito bites I can't even sleep at night.
In Illinois.
In my backyard. I can't conceive of where else I got them. But
and there were nowhere near 495 species of birds around you at that point.
No. Me and the house sparrows and the dastardly chipmunks.
All right, so let's talk Inca Tern.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, that was
So
my
you saw
idea
Inca Terns.
to do it, because he sent a picture and I'm like, oh my God, Inca Terns.
Those are so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
So Lima is this, huge cosmopolitan city right on the shores of the Pacific Ocean, and it overlooks this Humboldt Current, which is a cold current, and And Inca terns are a bird that are native all along this coast. And right in Lima, there's a restaurant I don't think it's ever been open when I've been there, that's kind of built out onto a pier into the ocean. And the terns just love sitting on it. And so I was kind of demoralized when I came in on the taxi from the airport, because I drove by and I looked out there and I couldn't see any flying around. And I went up to this hotel that we always stay out called the Señorial, which is walking distance, dropped my stuff, and then felt like I'd go for a walk and find something to eat. And I walked down to the coast and put my binoculars up on the hotel, and there are all these surfers on one side, and then you could just see these Inca terns going around and flying around it. And the next morning I got up early and walked all the way down to get those pictures. And they're just these incredibly, they're a monotypic genus within the terns, and they're found all along the coast, and they're just incredibly distinctive because they have these orange bills, sooty bodies, black caps, and then they have this yellow patch and a long trailing feather that kind of goes across the cheek and waves around in the back, which is just, I'm not sure I can think of another bird that has anything like it.
I think they're
Looks
amazing.
looks like a
looking.
mustache.
Yeah.
It's a mustache. It's totally a mustache.
And the feathers, it's so smooth. I can't describe. I don't know what the right words are, but even when you see the specimens, it's like they're carvings out of marble or something like that. But they're that very pretty gray color. But like their feathers interlock more cleanly than other birds' feathers do. Something about them, they're just so slick and sleek, and they're so beautiful. And I mean, I would say they are the most distinctive bird in that family. So this is the Laridae family, which is gulls and terns. And this monotypic genus is called Larosterna, part gull, part tern. So Laros is the genus name for gull, and Sterna is one of the genus names for tern. So they hedged their bets about what it was. Called it Larosterna.
So when you
What
say
is the difference between? Sorry, go ahead, RJ.
I was just asking about the monotypic genus. So does that mean it's not related to other terns, or what exactly does that mean?
Well, everything's related to something, right? But it has no close relatives. So there's nothing else that's in the same genus, no other species that are closely related to it. So it's kind of at the bottom of the tree of life for tern. So it's a tern, but it definitely does not look like any of the other terns. So
It's funny, RJ, that's a really good question, because over the years there have been people we know who have grumbled about the whole concept of that you should never have a lineage of one. But if you look across the avian tree, there are a lot of birds that really have no close relatives, in the sense of, so everybody knows what an osprey looks like, but an osprey isn't closely related to any other species of hawk. I mean, I think ospreys are so widespread. I think there's probably going to be some opportunity to split ospreys up into one or two species, but it's still going to be this incredibly small set of species that are really similar to one another, and from a genetic standpoint, not closely allied with anything else.
And I wanted to talk about Inca terns because you can see that spectacular bird from the city street of Lima, looking out over the water.
Cool.
It's not, you don't have to, not all really amazing and beautiful and cool birds have to require life-defying experiences. That one requires binoculars and your ability to go outside and look at the water.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's just such a pretty bird.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so are they near threatened? So is it harder to see them now than it used to be, or is it still?
So that's an interesting one. So they again, they live in this area that is this cold water current. That's one of the reasons why the Peruvian coast is so dry, and that, like, they have there's no rain, but the humidity can be really high. So there's literally this they call it the garua, and there's this cloud that for 6 or 7 months out of the year is almost omnipresent on the Peruvian coast. Like watching in the airplane as we left, I would say it goes all the way up into northern Peru and into Colombia or into Ecuador. And I guess the populations are probably affected by what happens with El Nino because the fish populations. So the El Nino is a warm current, and that warm current may drive away the fish a little bit.
So they eat
And so there may be.
anchovies, these little baby anchovy-like things. And so I think their populations must fluctuate like John was saying, as a food resource fluctuates. So my guess is it's that puts them into the near threatened. I was surprised they had that category when I looked at that too, but but you never know. And things whose populations fluctuate pretty dramatically, it doesn't take necessarily much to make their numbers go really small. So, and if they can't recover because of whatever it is, I mean, I don't think anybody conceives of them as endangered or even that close to being endangered. It's just something you have to watch. Anything that fluctuates their populations like that.
I agree with Shannon. I think sometimes, and I want to be careful how I say this, the near threatened category, I think now contains almost 30% of the world's bird species.
Wow.
And
well, people
I
suck.
say that with a lot of, well, yeah, looking into what's this bird does. So they nest on one thing I find really fascinating is I think of terns as always being open sandy beach nesters. They want wide open flat surfaces, and this bird actually nests in crevices and rocks and things which are abound on these islands off the coast of Peru. And those islands aren't really all that accessible to anybody, except for the guano hunters that were going there to get bird poop for fertilizer and things. And so that's about the only quote unquote threat to them. And that's pretty well controlled these days. I mean, I guess the big question would be whether the anchovy population is doing well. And if it wasn't, that could be a major factor with respect to the excessive.
You never know how resilient a species is until it's challenged like that. Can it change its diet? How flexible is it? You don't know necessarily until resources get pretty limited and they need to see if they can find other food sources.
And then they don't really migrate. They kind of stay in that area.
So it was interesting. I was looking at the maps and I was thinking, it sounds like they expand south along the coast a little bit into Chile in the non-breeding season. But I think the general dogma is that that's not migration. That's just sort of additional movement by some individuals in some of the population. So I think that's something that actually is not particularly common in the terns, being a completely non-migratory taxon. I'm sure there's some other species, but they're not all that many.
We have 31 of them, and most of our specimens are from zoos, from Brookfield, Lincoln Park, and then a zoo in Florida. So it is a bird you can see, in zoos in North America.
Yeah, we saw one at the Brookfield Zoo this past winter. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw. Didn't we see a bunch of them, RJ?
I think so. Yeah. There was one we got really close. It was up really close to us. I remember getting like a good look at that
it was
mustache.
So cool. Yeah. And I wanted to ask about the mustache. I know RJ has questions about the mustache too. But I'm sorry, do both males and females have the mustache? Okay, so is it the females that are looking for the best mustache in order to find a mate?
There's a little bit of data that suggests that it's a measure of quality, and that there are ways in which the birds are evaluating each other. What you need for that is data that says that, and I don't know what these data are. Like, is it a longer mustache? Is it a thicker mustache? Is it a whiter mustache? I mean, they're all right. And this is why this stuff is sometimes hard to at least convince me that we know for sure what the birds are actually thinking in all this. But there's no other obvious explanation for why you would have these incredibly cool adornments that seem to have no functional capabilities other than looking cool.
They look really cool.
Yeah, they
do look really cool.
Look at me.
I was wondering with the specimen at the museum, is there anything you have to do to preserve the? I mean, so it's feather, but what is? I mean, is it? You talked about how their feathers are so unique. Is that like almost like a I mean, what is what is it made out of? I guess is my question.
It's made of keratin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But is it one thick
No, I mean,
piece, or is it
it,
different pieces of different feathers up together?
it's just elongated feathers.
Or...
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
RJ, you can ask what you wanted to ask.
What did I want to ask?
Something about mustache wax.
Oh no, that was my question. How do they preserve it? I'm assuming you don't use mustache wax.
No, we do not.
So the funny thing there, I mean, I don't know whether preen oil would be the same kind of thing for something like that.
Mhm.
In other words,
oil.
you know, could they do something to make those things somehow look better in one way or the
I
other?
don't know. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't take time to look at a lot of videos of them. Do they? Do they groom that?
Like green.
They can't really
Yeah.
groom it. They can't really groom
It's
it.
just that they can't really do anything to themselves. You're right.
No, not unless they use their feet or something like that.
No, I don't think there's a lot known about courtship and long-term pair bonds, for instance. But you know, those are all things that would be ripe for studying, for sure, to do more
I'm
work
super curious about what got turned on there to make that bird that color, because its relatives are not. You know, this is not a common color, or well, it's a gray is common, but an all gray bird like that is not common in gulls and terns.
Here's my hypothesis.
Oh God.
Let's hear it.
The guru. if it's basically cloudy 7 months out of the year,
Come on.
maybe there's selection for being darker. Hey, another bird in that same
Oh.
Where are they
area
hiding
is a bird
from?
called from gray gull. It's just like, no, it makes it more effective hunting.
Oh, I buy that.
There we
Yeah.
go.
I buy that. Yeah.
Can you imagine
Shannon's not so
you're this
sure.
anchovy and you can't see anything and it's completely camouflaged and then this white mustache is around you?
Yes.
It
Yeah.
just looks like another anchovy coming down at you.
That's a interesting point.
No.
That's an interesting point. I'm buying what you're selling, John.
Oh,
There we go.
did you pay
I had
her?
a question about I had a question about their mouth. I'm looking at like they have that kind of patch on the corner of their beak, like it
Yeah.
reminded me of like you see in like a puffin. I thought that was kind of. I mean, are there other birds that have
Again,
that?
it's
I'm just
hard to-
thinking of. I was like a puffin immediately came to mind. Has that same kind of patch
Yeah,
there?
I think there are a few other things like that. Puffin is one, and so it shows up. But again, functionality wise, I don't know. I mean, again, I think outside of some sort of quality indication for the bird, where but then what you'd have to do there is show that there's variation across different individuals in the population, and you could do that with a whole bunch of photos. There's some really spectacular work done on blue-footed boobies, which clearly shows that how brightly blue your feet are is indicative of how successful you're going to be siring young.
So speaking of that, I was surprised looking at your pictures, John, and then other pictures. Their beaks and feet are almost red. Like they're like a really, really dark, bright orange, verging on like orange red. Shannon, does that have to do with nutrition, or is that also like another sexual attractiveness thing that you're just born with?
I don't know the answer to that. One way of looking at that would be to see if individuals change the amount of red throughout their lifetime, but also to see if you quantified the kind of the brilliance of that orange, whether or not those individuals had more offspring. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I would actually do another thing, which is ask what's the carotenoid content of the anchovy, the fish they're eating.
Oh.
And could that be just a source of, because it's not easy to imagine what other sources of carotenoids they would actually have. Their diet seems to be pretty narrow.
Just the anchovies.
Or again, some of that may be that the anchovies are eating some small crustaceans that are in the guts, and so eventually that means the carotenoids get in that way. I mean, there's interesting to think about. Yeah, what it would take.
I mean, I'm not
But
sure they know
it's a
what
very
kind of
beautiful bird red.
carotenoid it is either. Yeah. So I don't know that we know how the red gets made. So obviously it's some kind of
Okay.
carotenoid, but there are lots of different red carotenoids. So, and modified carotenoids and things like that. I have no idea what. It wouldn't surprise me if we don't know, because I went to look and see if I could find things about the tree of life for gulls and terns, and there's very, very little modern work done on
Oh, wow.
the tree of life for these birds. These birds are super complicated. They don't respect species boundaries. There's all kinds of weird hybrids that happen.
Oh.
So a very complicated group of birds to work on. And what most of the work that's been done, it seems to me, are descriptions of ID descriptions. So people trying to help other people identify these birds, because they're not very easy to identify either, in my opinion, especially if they're immature, then they all look the same. How much gray and brown there is in the immature individual, how many years it takes for them to achieve their adult plumage coloration. They're crazy complicated. So there really isn't that much work that's been done. So that's a part of the tree of life that's still waiting for someone to tackle it. There's a lot of missing material in some parts of the world, so you'd have to do a lot of work in Asia to capture enough terns and gulls. So the family Laridae has a little more than 100 species in it. And don't ask me what a species of those things are, because that is not easy. I cannot answer that question.
Okay.
So I don't know. I find them very difficult to identify. And I don't find their vocalizations, for the most part, distinctive enough to help me too much.
So what's the difference between a gull and a tern? Because I would have thought they were the same.
Their beaks are different.
Okay.
So if you look at the way a gull's beak is, it kind of has this weird little taper, but tern beaks are more pointy and straight without that.
Although I'll just point out there is a bird called gull-billed tern.
Yes, I know.
Oh, man, you've got to be kidding me.
And this thing is called the gull tern. So there are there are enigmas nested in their common name descriptions.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Nature's not so easy to bid into very discrete categories.
I would say, go ahead, Darte.
Oh no, I was just gonna say we were at the beach a couple days ago and saw some gulls flying overhead, and it was like one was brown and one was white, and it was like a juvenile. And I remember just thinking like, oh gosh, I don't even. I'm so intimidated by IDing gulls. It's like the fact that it takes years for their plumage to change and all of that, and I mean, I don't know how anybody does it.
Right.
So I have to admit, I was when I first got down to the beach. I think maybe I was in the taxi. I saw a couple of small, really dark gulls. So I knew they were immatures, but I was thinking to myself, geez, what could they be? And I don't think I've ever been in Lima this time of year. But when I started looking at the book, it was very clear that they were young gray gulls, because gray gulls are small and their immature plumage is really dark. But this is a bird that for a long time they knew about them on the coast, and they had no idea where they bred, and they breed out in the middle of the Atacama Desert, way away from the shore.
How weird.
Yeah. And so I don't know.
They're crazy. Very cool.
Why can't everything have a mustache and make it easy to identify?
I know, seriously.
Well, if you saw these, even if you couldn't see that mustache, if you only saw them from underneath, you probably could confuse them with a bunch of other things. Unless you saw that mustache in their beak color, they're still going to fade into the grayness of the sky.
But boy, once you realize what they are, oh my gosh, they're just absolutely beautiful birds.
Yeah, we'll have to post the pictures that you sent, John. They were super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.